This episode of the Pain Education Corner is sponsored by the Comella Foundation. The Comella Foundation is committed to relieving pain naturally using osteopathic healing principles. Here at the Comella Foundation, we envision a world where people achieve their maximum potential by being empowered with knowledge and skills to heal themselves and others. This information is to be used for educational purposes only and not to be construed as medical advice. If you have any questions or concerns, please consult a licensed healthcare professional. Hello, it's Bill, the Knee Pain Guru, and welcome to the Pain Education Podcast brought to you by the Comella Foundation. We have our good friend, Emmanuel Manolakakis, back. I caught him right after he was just getting done with a workout over at Fight Club in Toronto, Ontario. And I wanted to check in with Manny. We connected on Facebook a few days ago and wanted to see what he was working on, like what's moving for him, because it's interesting. There's one thing, Manny, I enjoy about your evolution as both a person as well as a instructor and a practitioner of martial arts is that you're always evolving. You're always things are changing, and it's really great to get a glimpse, check in with you to see what you got going on, because I think it's interesting for people who are watching the podcast to kind of get a sense for how a person who is really actively engaged in their life of improving and evolving, that gets stopped when people get in pain. It's like when pain grabs people, it's like it stops them, stops their life, 100%. Stops their evolution. And so, Manny, welcome back.
Thanks,
Glad
man.
You're here.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Yeah, even though we're shut down in Toronto, but I still make it a regular habit of training every day. Obviously different because I'm by myself, but nonetheless, I still continue training. And you know, it's been a while, Bill. Like we're talking like a year. It's been almost a year and a half here in specifically Ontario, like the province of that Toronto is in. Yeah, so we've been locked down for quite a while. And I remember when this whole thing went down and everything, you know, I stopped teaching. And so my life is always like go, go, go. There was always a lot going on. There was like adult classes, youth classes, archery classes, personal training classes. It was always a plethora. The pandemic kind of put a break on a lot of stuff. And for the first little bit, it was actually really refreshing because it could allow me to kind of settle down. Because when you teach, especially the amount I teach, you have a small amount of time to develop yourself, and then there's all this other time to develop helping other people, because you're just and there's also a lot of time spent to recovery, because you're just, you know, as I'm older, I'm in my, you know, my almost mid-50s, so you're like, you need more time to recover. That's not, you know, you just need a little bit more time to recharge the battery. So I with this break now, I've now taken what used to be, let's say, an hour and a half a week that I would, let's say, work specifically on me, like my skills. Like I did a lot of other stuff. Let's just put a number to it, right? Now that just went like tenfold. But that was like an hour and a half a day, like went from a week to a day. And it felt wonderful. Like for me, I felt brand new again, right? And I think what you're seeing me post and what you're seeing is this journey. You know, it's kind of a documented journey. And now it's not a week, it's not a month, it's over a year now. So I think that's why it's so evident to you, because you actively follow me, so you kind of see what you're doing, right? I like sharing that stuff because it shows people that it really doesn't stop, right? Like you really don't stop. Why people stop is their reason for doing something stopped, so then they stopped. But I always see another reason. Like maybe at the beginning, I started martial arts because, you know, I didn't want to get beat up like most people, right? You're in high school or you're, you know, whatever it is, you want to be able to defend yourself. And then later on, you realize the reasons change because you're not getting into a fight or there's not a bully. So what do? Keep imagining that there's a bully, right? And just the early on, but just before I forget it, because I would like to mention at the end, but to mention it now at the beginning. If anybody want to see like a real evolution of an athlete, because I was, I boxed in the 80s, and who was the premier boxer in the 80s? Mike Tyson. He was it. And if anybody has not watched any recent interviews or stuff that about Mike Tyson, you're missing something. This is a very special evolution of a man. You make no doubt about it. The man is dangerous. Like he's 54. He's almost exactly my age. I just can't believe how dangerous this man still looks. But there is a wisdom about him now that is so different. Yeah. And it's so wonderful to see that he is such better balanced person. Now, he's still super dangerous. I still would want to get in the ring with him. I don't care what 20-year-old you are. You do not want to get in the ring with this guy. He's still super dangerous. Sure. And he's still got his faculties. But there's a wisdom to him. There's a depth to him. There's an understanding. And it's so wonderful to see. If that's not happening to you, you're not training right. That's that simple. Don't get mad. You're just not training right. Okay. Right. You got to train to for different reasons at different point in your life. And I smile when I say this because I've done so many things before they were cool. I've done so many things before they were cool. I laugh. I hear people talk about work-life balance. What a load of fucking bullshit that is. I'm sorry. What a load of bullshit. Yeah. I worked at one of the craziest businesses ever. It was so stressful. Nobody talked about work-life balance. You just suffered. Well, guess what I was doing? I was training in SYSTEMA. And guess what I was using my SYSTEMA for? To help me at the office, to help me mitigate the stress and the pressure and the all that stuff that comes with corporate life, right? And I was using it, and I was better for it. I was calmer. I was relaxed more. I used to go to training not because I want to learn how to fight. And people are like, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm using my skills to get rid of the stress of my day at the office. I really don't care about anything else. It feels good to get rid of it. And then, there wasn't that focus back then, but now I see, especially look at our life now, right? We're talking about, so my system has evolved drastically. And as I had kids, it evolved, right? Because the stresses of dealing with kids at home and that whole life, becomes tough as well, right? Because, well, everybody knows who has kids, right? It's a challenge. And then running a big school, and now I have to use, my system to deal with those kind of things, right? And now with a pandemic, it's like very natural for me to say, okay, now I use my skills as a martial artist to deal with the anxiety, the depression, the negativity that comes from being bombarded with constant, bad news from whether it's press or, the uncertainty of unknown times, right? And it's really interesting because when I first started SYSTEMA, there was a big focus on this was a military art, right? And it is, right? It definitely is. And there was talk about, okay, what happens to when you're under great stress with PTSD and all that stuff, right? And I was like, I was always listening because I felt like that working in an office. It felt like I had those similar traits that a soldier had, oddly enough. And I'm not a military guy, but I was listening, and it's funny to see them play out now. It's funny to see. I think I haven't talked to you about it, but I think you're probably seeing the same things on your side, that there are illnesses that are associated with anxiety and depression and how that affects the physical body, right? So when I've been doing online classes now for a year and a half, and I'm teaching SYSTEMA, but the main goal is to help people get rid of anxiety, stress disorders, get better night's sleep, be better people, get rid of the negative effects of what's happening in our society right now. Just the isolation effect, right? All that stuff. So my teaching has changed drastically, right?
Yeah, you bring up a really great point, because I believe the mindset of someone who gets into pain and continues to go in that direction, there's a needing of a lack of, or there is a needing for more flexibility in the mind as well as in the body in terms of what you do. And what I hear you saying is that you'll work with things for a while, and then there's a pivot that happens. There's a pivot in your training or your mindset or your thinking. It's like, oh, I'm getting kind of diminishing returns working on this skill. So instead of doubling down your efforts or increasing the workload to push through this barrier, you're pivoting and working in or thinking in another direction, working on something. The example, the lockdown, all of that. Well, we couldn't continue to live our lives like it was before. We had to pivot. And I think a lot of people were stuck in that place mentally and emotionally. It's like, well, I can't do the things that I did before, so I'm not going to do anything. And it leads to what you're pointing to, which is that imbalance that increases the stress and tension in the physical body, in the mind, and the emotions, and it causes ailments.
Yeah. And I think that on a bigger level, we have to look at things like saying, okay, so let's look at it from a spiritual perspective, just quickly, right?
Sure.
So you have a person that let's say is quite spiritual. They spend a lot of time praying. If it stays there, it goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely goes nowhere. Okay. If that doesn't come to home, to life, to everything, you're not spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a martial artist and it just stays for fighting, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
It's nowhere. If it's not everywhere, it's nowhere. It's got to be all part. It's all part of you. Okay. You can't, when I see somebody, let's say over a year ago wrestling, and they were like a nasty wrestler, they would like be mean and nasty with it. First thing I said is, this what you're like with your kids? Is this what you're like at work? Like, you can't just be a dirty fighter and nice at work. You're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're that same person.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you are. And how has that held you back? Has it stopped you from promotions? Have it stopped you from, and then what if you have an injury? Are you nasty with your injury? Like, you've hurt your knee. Are you like, what, doing ballistic squats because are you nasty to your body? Are you nasty to yourself? But that's what they do, right? You see it all the time, like the go hard, go home. I just feel so bad for people like that. They think, and maybe it did work. Like being a prick in life works. It does sometimes work, but it's not consistent. It's the results are horrible. Right. So this idea of the big concept here is, and there was a book written about it. I'm trying to recall, I'm gonna see if I remember the name right. The Obstacle is the Way. I believe that's the title of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to research that, and whatever it is, like if you have I have a bad knee from stuff I did years ago. That is what's going to teach me SYSTEMA. That's what's going to teach me. So the obstacle is that's going to teach you. That is the obstacle. That is the way. That's where you go. You don't go away from it. You go towards it. And that's that interesting philosophy, right? So like you find pain. Now, okay, you have to know the difference between good and bad pain. But the way is not necessarily, it's to understand that. Don't go away from it. Don't hide it. Don't band it. Like, go to it. Listen, it's talking to you. Listen to it. Have a conversation with it. Put it into perspective. So these are powerful things for me. And I've always found a way to, people using the word pivot, it's fine, is to, just see it for what it is. Understand what is, be curious. Like, don't hide from it, like, be curious about it. I'm at the age now, you start to see people getting sick in different ways. And, you see people often get sad about somebody when they hear an illness, that they have cancer or something. Why don't you try getting interested in what happened to that person? Why don't you try understanding what they're going through? Why don't you try understanding what they will be going through? And instead of feeling sorry, try to see how this happened, or try to understand it. And all of a sudden, the understanding is the beautiful thing in life. It's amazing when I see somebody who's had an injury I've had, and I right away can connect with them, because I'm already know the journey they're going to go through. And, it's really interesting. And we have a good laugh. You're able to laugh, and that helps a person. Rather than feeling sorry.
Yeah. One of the things I hear you saying when you were talking about, the spiritual component or the physical component, if you're only in that place and not in other aspects of your life, there's a lack of congruency in the different aspects of who you are. And you can use one aspect of who you are to be a reflection of these other aspects of who you are, to look at what needs to be worked on. Because I could, that certainly rings true for me in different aspects of my life, where it was like, oh, well, I'm doing that same thing that I was doing over here. And now I could use that insight I gained from praying or meditating or reflecting on things, and I could use it in a conflict or a business situation or whatever it is, to understand that on a deeper level.
Of course.
There was another piece. I think when you were talking about an illness, what is coming to mind is the situation going on at Toronto HQ with Brandon and Adam, and the evolution I've seen. It's just absolutely blows me away to see what just the simple movements and really focusing and breathing and relaxing and what Brandon has, how he's evolved in such a short period of time.
That's amazing. No, it's amazing. And always we need to begin by, prayers are real things, they help people, and he's been, and I'm sure a lot of people's mind, and in their prayers is his mind. And, support for somebody is not necessarily a like on Facebook, guys. It's more than that,
Sure.
So we have to keep that in mind. And I think that when we see these incredible recoveries, if enough people pray and it gets to the right person, sometimes pretty amazing things happen. So we keep praying for that, and we keep hoping, and those are where we derive strength from. So I'm extremely happy about that as well, and it's great to mention that for sure. But in many cases, we all go through those moments as well. So we look with support, and we always need to prepare for those moments in life. I've had a few in mind. And they weren't, and I'm sure all of us we've all had difficult moments, and that is our training, and that's his training now. And that's amazing. So it's great to see for sure. Some insight into this stuff to kind of prepare yourself, or not prepare for bad things, but we all need to kind of be ready. It is very much like martial arts skills. You don't know when you're going to use your martial arts skills. You might be now, it might be at 60. Who knows when you'll need it? I have no clue. But when you need it, you'll really need it. And that's all that matters, right? It's not, you can't see it, and you need it in different ways. You don't need it just in case you get jumped. Like Brandon needs it in a different way now. Right. So you need to, that's why it's so important to have a strong spirit first, because that will work with everything. It's great that you're an amazing, wrestler, but will it help you as you're falling down a flight of stairs? Will it help you when, it won't, but the spirit, and a strong spirit will, these are the things that matter. And it brings us back to, when we're training, we need to make sure that it's the spirit first, the mind, the body, in that order. Don't people just focus on the body, but the body can be taken like this. Seriously, it can really be taken so quickly, and, so how you need to approach this is that you say to yourself, because this is what's happened to me over the last year, right? Is, people have been asking me, they've noticed some of the stuff I've been doing. And I spent I would say about 2 months of the, the little bit of the lockdown, focusing just on quieting my mind, because your mind gets very busy. And now I use it through prayer. It could also be meditation, whatever it is that brings you back to the simplest thing that you do, which is breathing. Like the simplest thing. Like, what is the thing you do the most? Breathing. And can you focus on your breath with nothing else on mind, like without your mind jumping, right? And that's hard, right? And what you're doing is you're cleaning your mind, and you're also creating a place where I'm in control. Like you need to grab a hold of your mind and look at what's happening now. If you ever want to lose your mind, just watch the news for a couple of weeks and watch what happens, right? Like you'll be so depressed so fast, it's unbelievable, right? So you gather your mind, you learn to control it, and not you learn to make sure you're in control, not like your mind. Your mind, you control this. And once you gain control over it, then you start to shape it with visions, and you start to use maybe more visualization techniques of like the types of things that you want to think about, right? Like, so first I have an injury, I hurt my elbow, let's say. I'm super depressed about it. I can think nothing else about my elbow. Then, okay, so I calm my mind down. I stop thinking about my elbow so much. It's still there, but I don't let it infest my mind. And then once I get that under control, then I start thinking positive things about healing my elbow, about how I want to move it, how I'm going to use it, and then and then it goes that way. So I spent a good amount of time silencing my mind, and then I spent a good amount of time about thinking and visualizing about the person I want to be now in my 50s, not the person I was. I'm not going back in time. I would say I wish I was 25. I'm not there. I don't want anybody to go there. But how do you want to be at 50? Like, what is it that you want to do at 50? How is it that you want to be? What is it that you want people to say about you? What is it that you want to feel about yourself? Like, what kind of a person do you want to be? And then when you have that clearly in your mind, you'll make it. You'll manifest this. It's not that difficult. It's remarkably simple, but it's hard. It's hard work, right? And for the first time in my life, I would say about a year ago, I felt the difference between power and force. I actually felt it.
Yeah.
I said, this is it. I see it. I knew there was a difference. I mean, you can what words changed into feelings, and I felt it. I said, when you carry power, it's totally different than force. And I felt powerful, but not forceful.
Right.
Because it's like I didn't bother other people. I didn't, and then something interesting, happens, because when you get like that, people will, it puts people off in a different place, right? You have to, when people see you happy and content, it upsets people. It upsets people because they want you to be like them. And you see, and to be a powerful person allows you to understand that that's quite normal in human nature. And you have to be able to sit back. But it's interesting, when you're powerful because you're so happy. You're not angry. Like, it's like you're happy. Like I see good, I feel happy for that person. Right. I'm not jealous or feel, when I see somebody injured, I don't feel sad for them. It's not my thing. It's part of their journey, right? It's the faith of some sort, right? So this doesn't happen by accident. It takes a lot of hard work to feel power, not force. A lot of people forcing people, right? We see that happening. I'm manipulating people. The difference is those things. When you feel powerful, it's so clean. It's such a different type of energy, You're not trying to impress somebody. You're not trying to impress somebody. You just, because who's there to impress? I'm in an empty room here. Who gives a care? I was working with the chain. I don't know if you saw me do some of the chain stuff on. I had to grab, I whacked myself a couple of times in the head. I said, "Oh, big master," It's like, you have to laugh. I don't care, guys. It's really funny. Like, but if you don't think, that's why I always watch these guys juggling chainsaws and stuff. I always think, they must have had some bloopers. That's gonna go bad, man. Anyway, so
what do you mean? What do you mean?
What do you mean? Yeah. So people watching these podcasts and stuff, and I hope they derive that there's just a lot of hard work here, and the hard work is first silencing your mind, and it doesn't have to be like a freaking, you don't have to find some garden and sit there and watch a plant grow or something, but you just have to still your mind. And then once it's quiet and still, make sure that you give it the best food. So it's much like fasting, like once you clean your body, give it the best food. Don't shove a hamburger in there. Like, don't do that. Like, your body's aching for good stuff now. Read good material, watch good things, be around the good people, talk nice things, like that's and it's like you feel power coming, not other stuff. It's a different type of energy, right? So the same way, I hope people look at that with the way they don't think an injury can't make you stronger. My God, of course it can. Like, of course, 100%. When people go to the weight room and they lift weights, they're ripping their muscles, and then it heals and they become stronger. Like the same thing happens inside, like a heart or head. Like, it's amazing, like don't forsake that. It's a great opportunity for a lot of growth. So when injuries happen to me, yes, there's a down because we're not, but then there's a stronger, there's a much stronger thing. I mean, I think you were there at that. Remember when I broke my arm and I had my arm in a cast at one seminar? Yeah, it was crazy. It was just a fluke thing that happened, and I had to teach 2-3 seminars while I had my cast on over a month and a half period. By the third one, I was using the thing. It was a part of me. I didn't resist it. Remember that. It was very interesting for me. I approached it so different than other injuries. And I should have documented that way more. I didn't realize it would be as a profound experience as I thought, I really didn't. I look back now, I could have wrote a book on that. It was, but now that it's past, it's like it's lost its zeal, but it was quite special for me. I really, that was a huge spike in SYSTEMA learning. And I feel that about the pandemic. It's a huge spike. Like I will not go back to teaching the same way. It's changed me. I realized that people that show up to training, you got to put in more time. This is so valuable. If I didn't do this, I wouldn't have grown. Like, you really got to put in a lot of personal time. Like, you've got to put in more time on yourself. It's not just training. It's not just training in a group. You got to put in time on yourself. It's so important.
To learn more about the work we do at the Comella Foundation, please visit our website at the Comella, COMELLA foundation.org. Sure. Yeah. And I think that there's a couple of points. One is when I see people get injured, there's a shrinking back and isolating from I'm no longer the same person, or I'm no longer this type of person. So you shrink back and you disconnect from the support systems that are there to actually help you. Your family, your friends, your loved ones, things like that can actually help you through that can see things from an outside perspective, that can give you the direction to go in that you may not see yourself because you're in that place of fear, the pain. Oh, my arm's broken. Well, I think I'm just going to have to sit here for the next 6 to 8 weeks until it heals, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do. When in actuality, use that time as a way to develop in other ways, or like what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Recently, as you saw, I got I've never, it's interesting. Weapons are an interesting thing to me. I've used a lot, but recently I picked up the Shashka. I don't know if you saw that, right? Yeah. I'm loving it, man. It's a spectacular weapon. It's so perfect for SYSTEMA, especially. It's a strong, it's more of a saber, I guess. I'm not sure it's a sword, but more of a saber. But nonetheless, it's light enough and it's got so much flexibility, but yet it's long. It's got some nice range, and it's a wonderful, real weapon that you can grow from, especially for SYSTEMA's perspective. For me, I really feel it. I'm just trying to imagine, because I'm still so new at it, so it feels so good to be new at something that I've never tried. And you got to be careful with it. You need to lose a toe or a finger,
like juggling chainsaws.
Yeah. But I love it. And it's amazing because I know how to move, but this is changing my movement patterns too. So it's really nice. It's nice to, and that important ability to be a new student again. And see, people think you have to like try another art or make this radical change. And I'm like, I don't understand that at all. Like, I just picked up the shotgun. It feels bright. It's SYSTEMA. I know it is, but it feels so different. Yeah. And you just need to put different onus on things, focus on different little aspects of training, And that's amazing. Like, there was a year I just massaged, I learned how to relax people. And there's another year I learned, how to work with the chain a little bit, or a stick or something, and a different weapon, not for a week, for a year. Like, really take time with it. Really take time with it, and you realize that the more I work with it, I'm like, and I just find this interesting. You'll get a kid who trains in the 100-meter sprints. Like, think of it, 100-meter sprints, yet he's doing that for 20 years until he gets to like an Olympic level athlete. So how many steps is that? 30 or whatever you want to get. Like, that's it. That's all there is. Yet that person found enjoyment for 20 years. Yet with all we can do in martial arts, we're bored in a year. Like, if we think we're come on, guys, there's so much here. There's so much movement, so much you can focus on. There's so much. Take your time and try master things. Try to really hone them in. Work with details and see what they say about you, and see what it says about you, what they say about, look at it. Really go deep if you can.
That example you were talking about of the person doing the 100-meter sprint, that's only like the tip of the iceberg, the actual sprint. They break that whole thing down into, the stance, the explosion, so they're doing specific weight training for specific muscles, and for the range in the arms, and the breathing. Like, those are all elements that they're breaking down and going deep on. So I don't think. Go ahead.
No, really quickly. So not mean to interrupt you, but so when I went from high school to university, when I went to York University, and at that time there was a very special place called the Track and Field Center. Okay, and it was Canada's elite training facility for track athletes, and so I go there. And because I'm a varsity athlete playing rugby, I had access to this facility. It wasn't only anybody. You're allowed, if you're a student at university playing a varsity sport, you had access, or an Olympic athlete, one or the other. So here I am. I go from a little high school in Toronto to this elite facility. Guess who's training? Ben Johnson.
Oh, wow.
And I'm literally like, I'm watching him work out. There's the sweat on the bench he just came off of. Like, he's that close to me. And watching his coaches work with him. I was there for an hour and a half doing a workout routine. Ben Johnson had just practiced the first 3 steps of his sprint for an hour and a half. Over and over and over. Just the first 3. He was known for his explosive starts, and his coaches videotaped it, played it. It was unbelievable. 3 steps. He had more detail in his workout for 3 steps than I did in my entire workout. And he had coaches all over him. There was 3-4 coaches at any given time. Okay. And this dude worked out for 3-4 hours a day, steady. And it was just 3 steps for then. And then the next workout would have been something different. It was crazy. And to see that detail, and to know we have way more detail in martial arts, we're not exercising. Like, I mean, that's just one idea, right? And it's like, when somebody says, "Oh, I've got an elbow problem," and you how much there is in that. Right? Look how much there is there. So to go deep for people, you have to practice going deep. You have to practice details, like, if, for people wanting to know how to start, just observe. Seriously, just observe, listen good, watch good, observe. That's so important. So when you're talking about the sprinter, it's interesting, because I was just like, I remember watching this dude train. And guys, and he was powerful. He just admitted it. He was powerful. It was still a freak of nature to watch him sprint full out. Like, he really looks like the fastest man. It's like, wow, that's some serious speed. And relaxation too. Then go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and I think that escapes many people, is that depth of focus, like zooming in on just those first 3 steps. People just see it as like, oh, I'm just going to go out and run 100 meters, and that's all I'm doing. And they're looking at it as like the snapshot, when in actuality, there is all of these little frames that Olympic level athlete is dissecting and working on just that. and then weaving it together and then pulling it back apart and then focusing on those different aspects and then weaving it back together. And each time there's an evolution of that movement, of that exercise, of that punch in martial arts, that punch or that kick or whatever we're working on, as a way to look deeper into ourselves as to where we need to shine the flashlight to improve.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to people's your willingness to improve your observation skills and improve your listening skills. You got to work on that. And it's just observe, just look really closely. Everything in the world is right in front of you. It's happening. It's all there. You just didn't see it. You got to see it. You got to learn how to see it. When you watch an athlete training, it's there. He's not hiding anything. It's right there. But you didn't see it. That's the problem. So observing, and the difference between observing and seeing, they're a little different. A little different. A lot of people observe, but you don't really see. The person says, I see. Like it's a deeper, I see.
Yeah. So I got a great story about like looking and seeing. And I was it was a primitive skills class, and we had the instructor says, okay, go over and sit by the edge of this lake and look into the lake and then let me know what you see. And you're sitting there and it's like, okay, well, I see water, and there was missing so many things. And we go back and everybody is kind of giving what they saw in all of this. And there is awareness above the water. There's awareness below the water. And then there's interactions at the water. And, a lot of that escaped my awareness of like, I didn't even think to look below the water and all the stuff that was happening. Tadpoles and fish and algae and all sorts of stuff, and you're just going on and on and on. You hear what other people see, and it's like, oh, I thought it was going to be some amazing mystical experience, and it's like, it's right there, it's right in front of your face, and you're missing it. Or at least I was. Anyways, there was so much that escaped my awareness at the time.
Yeah, it does have to be, and just it's little things, it's just like, and there's so much training time. If you're on a subway, just watch. Most people zone out. They want to kind of get away. It was amazing. I get up to the country quite a bit. I like to get out to go do some fishing and do my stuff outdoors and hiking and stuff. And you could have neighbors that are literally 3 miles apart, 10 miles apart, right? But yet the moment you walk out your front door, they're, hey, from 2 kilometers, from way over, they just saw you out there. They just waved, right?
Yeah.
But in the city, everybody's so close, but they pretend like they don't see you at all. They just they put their head down and that's it. Because that farmer's vision is this way. It's big, so he sees everything happening, right? He sees it all. And we've gotten really bad with our observation skills, especially the kids. It's really bad. We need to be able to observe things the right way and see, where things are. And they had it bad. All people, but especially kids. And then just because I guess I would be that way too, if you're throwing a cell phone in my hand at 8. And then you're always looking down, and that you're taking out your observation skills, right? So and anybody that to observe wild animals and to see their observation skills, you realize how far off the beaten path we've gone, right? And I enjoy that part about getting out into the woods. I love getting as close as I can to wildlife, like, consciously, like just trying to get close. And that's so interesting to me. And I got just this past little while, I got within the closest I've ever gotten to a wild deer. I was within 10 feet. It was absolutely hilarious. It didn't know what I was. I was just sitting by a tree, just relaxing. And it just popped out of nowhere, and it looked at me, and it was surprised. And then it's like, but I wasn't moving. I was pretty still, but it knew I didn't belong there.
Right.
And then it was curious. It walked away and then came back. It says, okay, well, you're not chasing me, and I'm curious now.
Yeah.
And it got really, really, really close to the point where I was getting nervous. Like, I'm like, okay, I know that I don't eat people, but it got me nervous. I'm like, it felt really special because, it's super interesting to observe. Everything you do will be noticed. Like if I did that, it was noticed. If I raised my eyebrow, it was noticed. Like everything, it was noticed. It's like the most intense job interview of all. It's like that. It's like really everything is being noticed and evaluated. And it was like, wow, very interesting feeling. And I realized how poor my observation skills are with that stuff. And you build on it. It starts and it gets better, you know?
Have you ever played with wide angle vision with your brain state with the animals?
Where you don't see them, like you look past them or around them, or
like SYSTEMA. People are punching at you, and you can't focus on one person, because the moment you focus on one person, you get popped. So you bring your vision out, like looking at night. You have to, that shifts your brain state to a parasympathetic state. Animals don't perceive you as a threat in that state, which is where you are when you're relaxed. And I've done that with different animals where it's like, that curiosity that comes out in them. They know you don't belong there, but they don't feel threatened at the same time.
No, they don't.
So
I had one funny one that happened years ago where I was in the woods, and it was raining. And I was like, damn, it could just start raining, right? So I looked around. They didn't have any umbrella or anything. I went underground. I went underneath a big evergreen, just for some protection. I was there, and I was just sitting still. And then, I didn't think anything of it. I just, looking out, like you said, wide vision, wondering when the rain is going to stop. And then I don't know, out of nowhere, I look down, and there's a red fox right there, and he's doing the same thing I'm doing. He's looking around, and then I'm looking at the red fox. And then he says, somebody was looking at me. He looks up, and we look at each other. We're both like, I didn't jump back. He didn't jump back. We just look at each other. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Hey, what are you doing? And then he stayed. He was there. And then the rain stopped. We went our own ways. It was hilarious. I really have never had such an experience. I was literally within 2 feet of him. I didn't jump. I mean, I know they're not, but it's still, it's still a wild animal. You're like, I didn't expect it, and he didn't expect to see me. We both had this perplexed, like, well, where else would we be? It's raining. Like even the fox didn't want to get wet, right? We both had the same idea, right? That was really funny. And I've never gotten that close. It's really hard. Like red foxes are kind of cunning. They're not easy to see. They're not easy to see. They're very deceptive. So it was interesting that we both had the same idea. Just it's raining. And we were both, like I said, had this big vision, and we were right in front of each other. Anyway.
So you're talking about awareness skills in wildlife. That's something I've been working with my daughter.
Great.
Ever since she was 3-4 years old, we would always pay attention to different things, point out different things. And we were walking through the yard, and it had just rained, like a torrential downpour. Everything was sopping wet. We're walking through the yard. There's this one steep part of the hill. And I said, hey, Evie, what happened here? She looks at it. She goes, the deer slipped. I was like, oh, it was so good. And you looked at it, and it was like, it hit that steep part of the hill, and its feet gave out. So it was
Smart.
pretty cool to be able to see her level of awareness. And she tells me how she's like, yeah, Dad, I pretend I'm not paying attention to people, and I keep an eye on them in wide angle vision. Like, there you go. Nice work.
Nice. That's awesome, man. It's great to kids need that a bit of awareness of what's around them,
Mhm.
especially nature. Nature is amazing. It's so much going on in the forest, but nobody's aware.
Right.
Nobody. That's like, so just stop for a second. It'll settle down, and you'll see everything. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and I think what I love about the outdoors, well, there's a lot I love about it, but the quiet and the how wonderful that is. The really,
Mm.
it helps me quiet my mind without a doubt. It really is nice. It's hard to imagine doing it any other way, to be honest with you. You don't want utter silence. I don't,
Mhm.
not necessarily. I'm not a big fan of utter silence. That's maybe a torture, to be honest with you. But some sound like water or wind or
Mhm.
birds, like these are wonderful sounds, and you don't have to focus on them. They're just there in the background. They're very calming. Um, I find that goes a long way. And when, I don't know, when I can calm myself, when I calm my mind, I can actually start to understand why I'm doing stuff.
Mhm.
Right? Like, it's like, I remember one time you're working on my knee or something, and you said, until it's panicked, like until this relaxes, it's hard to work with it. Right?
Mhm.
It's like you need to be able to calm your mind and see things from a different perspective, right? Like, until that happens, right? You see it naturally with somebody that, say, they got some bad news from the doctor. Until they accept it, it's hard to beat it,
Right.
right? Until they acknowledge what they have. And it's like, to a lesser degree, you see people when they get a bad diagnosis, whether it's, say, use cancer, because it seems to be the most common one, right? Of course, people at the beginning deny it or kind of think they're going to die and stuff, and then they realize after a while that no, it's a battle. That's all that is, and you definitely can do it. And when they accept it, and they take it a little bit more lighthearted.
Mhm.
Not that it's not serious, because remember, all athletes are faced, like, I remember being a competitive athlete, and it was freaking tense, man. It was like, you can't perform like that. You have to lighten up a little bit. You're too tight. Even though maybe your whole life is on the line, meaning everything you've trained for is on the line. But if you have that attitude, you'll never perform well.
Right.
And you guys watch me. I mean, you guys watch me do some of my archery stuff. Archery is a perfect example. the
Mhm.
the last thing you want to tell yourself is that this shot is important. Like, that's like that's like shit. That's the worst thing you can tell yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the worst of all. Like, you just, everything has just got to be lighthearted. Yeah, just do my thing. Moment somebody says, this is it.
Yeah.
You're like, shit, like, it becomes a mental game, right? It's horrible.
Yeah.
So the archer has taught me just to be cool with everything. Just relax. It doesn't matter. Like, oh, somebody's lost their arm in a car accident. Okay, no worries, man. Just grab the arm, put it in a bag. It's cool. But like, that's the person you want in a
Right.
chaos. You don't want the guy that's freaking out,
Yeah.
inside freak out, but outside stay cool, like, it was so interesting, and I know there's going to be a big shot coming up, like something that I got to make. And the hardest thing to tell yourself something important when it is super important. It's like, so it's really taught me a lot about those kind of things. It's just to
Mhm.
learn how to take everything the same, all cool. It's like I become, you got the island time, chill out, relax, everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, I see that a lot, especially where I'm talking to people that are in pain every day. And it's one of those things that it's like, you just got to kind of let them vent initially so they can begin to get present. Because after a
yes,
while, they start repeating themselves. They're saying the same thing about their injury over and over and over again. And then finally it's like, okay, well, do you want a solution? Because that's really why they're there. They want a solution. So how could we calm ourselves down, get the facts straight, figure what are we going to do to create the most comfort in the knee, shortest period of time? Let's do that. And let's just focus on that. And all that other busyness is just distracting us from the real issue.
complete distraction. You're right, 100%, 100%. It's
Mm.
awesome, man. Such good. I got this as you're talking. All the stories are coming out. I gotta stop. There's too many stories. Like, It's really ridiculous. You know, I've watched people get hit by a car that I watched last year. I watched an old lady take a spill. They just smashed her
Oh,
head on the ground. Oh, it's horrible. You're like,
ow,
and
ow,
you know,
ow, ow,
you're on the first one on the scene, and you're like,
ow.
relax, don't worry. You know, you're rolling around. Don't worry, everything's fine. I saw it. You're
Oh, yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah,
chill
yeah.
out. You gotta keep. Yeah, guys. Like you know, you really. I think the worst stuff the hard stuff in life is that when you knew something was preventable, you
Mhm.
know, if somebody threw some salt down, if somebody just relaxed a little bit when they were driving, you know, just really kind of took took 5 kilometers off. Like if you talk to paramedics, you talk to police officers, they'll tell you like it's just people in a rush and not present, you know, like you want to avoid those things if you can, right? Just
Mhm.
so I realize a lot of those injuries, and even the same in martial arts. I mean, how many injuries we've seen, Bill, and they're all preventable. Like I rarely, you know, if the it's just people not aware of they're just mistakes. It's not like a deliberate thing. It's a careless act, right? And it's the same. I'm sure if you go to a hospital, it's full of people that have cut themselves in the hand in the kitchen, not in
Mhm.
knife fight. It's just careless use of a knife that caused an injury, right?
Mhm.
It's the same thing, you know.
And here's an interesting thought. What you were saying
Yeah.
about people not being present.
Yep.
It's like the injury is there to bring them present.
Yes, it
So
is.
they were not present before. And the
Yeah.
injury was just like, hey, take a look at this to
Yep.
bring you present. And what happens with most people is when that happens, they get less present with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, what I my one of my favorite moments when two people are, you know, they're about when the fight goes from like conversation to an actual physical hit, and when the guy gets whacked, you know, he just gets smacked in the face, usually in
yeah.
the mouth or the nose, and he has to like physically check. Like you didn't know you got smacked, like you didn't hear it, you didn't feel it,
Yeah.
like, and then they're like, oh, I've been punched. Oh, you
Yeah.
got punched, all right.
Like
About
you didn't
3 seconds
recognize.
ago, you didn't recognize what about 3 seconds ago, everyone here heard it. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like I, it was really funny,
but
really funny.
but it's like you could almost feel it coming from like way
Yes.
back here.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna get hit. You keep that up, you're gonna get hit.
My thing is when they're surprised, all the gestures are there. You know, guess why I didn't get punched today, Bill? Because when I upset somebody, I stood far away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay close to them. I'm not going to make aggressive gestures, right? You
Yeah.
know, it's the same reason I didn't get bit by a dog.
Yeah.
I saw a dog. I didn't go close to it. I didn't pretend to look.
I didn't try to pet the dog that was growling and baring its teeth at me.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't. I didn't. I was observed. I was very present. You know, I was not present, right? Anyway, real funny stuff.
It reminds me of remember Constantine. He did that one the one
Yeah.
seminar where they were talking about dealing with wild or animals, dogs, defense against dogs. And you're thinking of this situation or scenario, and he breaks it down into this thing like, are you where the dogs, like, are you in the dog's home? like like the most
Yeah.
simplest thing, like, are you supposed to be there? Is it protecting its food? Is it protecting its young? Like, you deserve, essentially he was
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
think about it, do you deserve to get bit?
100%.
So
100%. It's that simple. It
yeah,
is. But he has a real gift of breaking the psychology down. I mean, because they are like, I have a dog and it's the same. They don't just randomly bite. You have to be aware of
sure.
are you there? What are you doing? Have you touched something? You know, have you made an aggressive gesture to the owner? Have you,
Mhm.
yeah, you know, were you supposed to be there? You know,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Like, yeah, yeah, it's not so random. There's more thought to it for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Okay, we're gonna wrap it up on dog bites.
We
Yeah.
could. It'd be weirder things to wrap up on, but
Well,
it is
this is true. We could
this.
save that. We could save that for another one. We could check in a few months, see where you're
Because
at,
I
what you're
gotta
working on.
well, just watch me, guys. I don't hide what I do. A lot of people really enjoy it. And, you know, there's a few that will always say funny things. I'm not worried about those people. You know, I don't do this with any coy reasons. It's just that I love to tinker with things as a person. I get very interested in things, and I don't get obsessed, but I get super interested in the things. And, you know, I was really happy to see, I think it was recently, Phil Mickelson won the PGA Tour at 50 years old. You know, this guy won a major tournament. I think that, you know, we're pushing this idea. Like, I feel as strong as I am now as I was when I was 20. I'm serious. You know, maybe I didn't bench press as much, but I still feel strong. And I think that there's nothing wrong, and there's no reason you can't be a strong, healthy, happy, and an amazing martial artist much later in life if you train the right way. And there's nothing to say that the best years of your life are not there. Like, I haven't seen any. I totally believe that, right? I'm gonna rule the shuffleboard world. I swear.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shuffleboard.
Oh yeah. Watch out.
That's strong,
Watch
buddy.
out. Well, that's strong is right. Got my own shirt. The whole bit.
Sleeves cut off.
Sleeves cut off.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna rule it rough. It's gonna be rough.
Nice.
We're gonna roll that way. It's gonna be
impressive. We're gonna have to get some live video footage.
We will.
But we'll have the link to your Facebook page if anybody wants to follow you on
It's
Facebook.
there. Yeah, it's
you know,
there.
to see you
For sure.
with the
All kinds of stuff.
and the chain,
Getting bit by a dog.
Getting bit by a dog, juggling chainsaws.
Yes, juggling chainsaws for Bill. For Bill.
Nice.
Bill told me so.
Manny, it's been a pleasure, man. It was great connecting with you again.
You too, man. You too. So good. Say all the best to everybody. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Manny, for being here. Once again, this is Bill Paravano, the Knee Pain Guru, going on behalf of the Comella Foundation for the Pain Education Podcast. Thanking you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you on the next one. To learn more about the work we do at the Comella Foundation, please visit our website at the Comella, COMELLA foundation.org. Join us next week for another conversation on natural healing methods to eliminate pain.